Have you ever looked at your salary and quietly wondered why it still doesn't feel like enough? Not in a dramatic way, not in a crisis, just a subtle feeling that despite doing everything right, financial freedom still feels distant, almost theoretical. Because on paper, things look fine. Let's take a realistic example. Imagine someone living in the United States or Western Europe, earning around $80,000 a year. After taxes, that comes down to roughly $4,800 to $5,200 per month, depending on the location. This isn't low income. It's what most people would consider a good, stable salary. Now look at the monthly reality. Rent or mortgage, $2,000. Car payment, $500. Insurance, utilities, groceries, $1,200. Student loan, $300. Subscriptions, dining out, and occasional shopping, $600 to $800. Nothing here is extreme, nothing looks irresponsible, but add it up and you're already close to $4,500, sometimes more, which leaves a few $100s at the end of the month, maybe. And that's before anything unexpected happens. Now step back for a second. This isn't someone struggling financially. This is someone earning well, living a normal life, making reasonable decisions. So why does financial freedom still feel out of reach? The answer isn't just about income, it's about structure. Most modern financial systems are designed around monthly commitments. Housing, transportation, debt, subscriptions, everything is broken into manageable payments. And that's the key word, manageable. Because when something is broken into a monthly number, it feels smaller than it actually is. A $500 car payment doesn't feel like $30,000. A $300 student loan doesn't feel like a long-term obligation. A $200 here, $100 there, it all feels reasonable. But collectively, these commitments shape your entire financial life. They reduce your flexibility, and over time, they quietly absorb almost everything you earn. Let's look at this from a simple math perspective. If someone has $4,800 coming in and $4,400 going out every month, they're saving $400. That's $4,800 a year. At first, that doesn't seem bad, but now consider the bigger picture. At that rate, even building a $50,000 safety net would take over 10 years. And that's without major life changes, emergencies, or periods of unemployment. So it's not that saving is impossible, it's that meaningful progress is slow relative to the cost of living. And this is where the feeling of being stuck begins. Because your income is high enough to maintain your lifestyle, but not high enough to easily break out of it. This creates a very specific kind of financial tension. You can afford your life, but your life is expensive enough that stepping away from it feels risky. You can't easily reduce your housing costs. You can't suddenly eliminate your car payment. You can't ignore your fixed monthly obligations. So even if you want more freedom, your current structure doesn't allow much room for it.
And this isn't just about numbers. There's also a psychological layer. Because most people don't make these decisions randomly. They follow a pattern that feels logical. You graduate, you get a job, you upgrade your living situation, you finance a car, you build a lifestyle that reflects your income. At each step, you're improving your quality of life. Nothing feels excessive. But over time, these improvements become fixed expectations. And once something becomes part of your normal life, it's very difficult to step backwards. Not because it's impossible, but because it feels like losing progress. So instead of questioning the structure, most people focus on increasing income. They assume the solution is to earn more. And sometimes that works temporarily. A raise gives you breathing room. But if your expenses rise alongside your income, which they often do, the underlying problem stays the same. This is why financial freedom feels so elusive, because it's not just about how much you earn, it's about how much of your income is already committed before you even receive it. Now let's extend this over time. If your fixed monthly costs continue to grow with your income, your savings rate stays relatively small. and your timeline to reach financial independence stretches further and further into the future. Not dramatically, just gradually, quietly. Years pass, income increases, lifestyle improves, but the gap between what you earn and what you keep doesn't expand enough to change your trajectory. And eventually, you realize something uncomfortable. You're financially stable, but not financially free. So what changes this? Not extreme budgeting, not cutting everything out of your life. The shift is more subtle than that. Financially intelligent people don't necessarily avoid spending. They just treat fixed expenses differently. They understand that every recurring cost reduces future flexibility. So instead of automatically upgrading their lifestyle with every increase in income, they pause. They ask a different question. Not, can I afford this, but what does this commit me to long term? Because a higher rent isn't just a number, it's a long-term obligation. A financed car isn't just a payment, it's a reduction in options. And options, more than income, are what create real financial freedom. So rather than expanding their lifestyle as quickly as their income grows, they allow a gap to form. Income increases, expenses increase more slowly. That gap, over time, becomes meaningful. Not overnight, not dramatically, but consistently. And that consistency changes the equation. Because now, instead of saving a few $100s a month, you're saving enough to create momentum. Enough to build a real buffer. Enough to invest with intention, not just leftover money. And, perhaps most importantly, enough to give yourself flexibility. The ability to make decisions without being entirely constrained by monthly obligations. Financial freedom, in this sense, isn't a sudden moment. It's the gradual expansion of that gap. The quiet increase in how much control you have over your time, your work, and your choices. And that's why it often feels impossible, because most people are never shown this part of the equation. They're shown income goals, career paths, lifestyle upgrades, but not the underlying structure that determines whether those things actually lead to freedom. Once you start seeing that structure, the goal doesn't necessarily change. You still want a good life. You still want comfort, stability, and progress. But you begin to separate two ideas that are often treated as the same: living well and living expensively. And that distinction over time makes all the difference. If this gave you a clearer way to think about your money, consider subscribing to the channel.